Right. Welcome to the Housing Commission's June 1st, 2022 regular meeting. This is a teleconference meeting with the Housing Commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely to ensure proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. I will call the meeting to order at 7:18 p.m. And I'd like to introduce staff and Housing Commission members present. Myself, Chair Lauren Bigelow. I don't see Jacqueline, but we have Commissioner Heather Leach, Commissioner Nevada Merriman, Commissioner John Pimentel, Commissioner Adriana Walker. All right, and we have joining with us from the city tonight, Acting Housing Manager Mike Noche and Acting Principal Planner Tom Smith. Mike, would you please provide instructions to the Housing Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chair Bigelow, and welcome members of the Housing Commission, and welcome everyone attending to our June 1st meeting of the Housing Commission. At this time, we ask that members of the Housing Commission please remain on the screen for the duration of the meeting. You will control your own webcams and microphones. Staff will engage cameras and microphones to make presentations and respond to members of the Housing Commission. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raised hand feature, or via telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand to speak. I will then have the ability to open your microphone and you can provide your public comment to the Housing Commission. And that'll conclude my instructions, and I'll return the meeting to the chair. Thank you. And Chair Bigelow, you are on mute.
It has to happen at least once a meeting. So I'll just take this one on as the one time, and we'll all be perfect from here on out. Under public comment, the public may address the Housing Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. Each speaker may address the Housing Commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The Housing Commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the Housing Commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Mike, do we have any public comment tonight?
Thank you, Chair Bigelow. And we do have a hand raised, and I'll make another call for anyone who just joined the meeting. For members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please use the raised hand feature or press *9 if you are dialing in. And this is item C, general public comment for items not on the agenda. Please use the raised hand feature and I will be able to call on you. And our first speaker is Karen Grove. And one moment while I share my screen. And Karen, you should be able to unmute and address the commission.
Thank you. Good evening. I am Karen Grove. I live in Menlo Park, and I live near the Sharon Heights Shopping Center. And I want to talk about the housing element. Specifically, that there's a list of 73 opportunity sites to develop the housing that we need, 1,500 of which need to be affordable, below market rate affordable. And some of the sites are very unrealistic. And so others really, really need to be designed in a way that they're basically irresistible to housing developers, and particularly nonprofit housing developers. And so in my community, which attends the Los Alamitos School District, I think it's really important that we add families to the Los Alamitos School District, as we are almost certainly going to add families to the Menlo Park City School District. And so the Sharon Heights Shopping Center is probably the most viable site on the list. And it's an older shopping center. I walk to it, it's fine, but I can definitely imagine a major upgrade. And so what I'd like to encourage our housing element to do is basically zone that site so that it is irresistible to developers, such that they badger the property owner endlessly until he sells to somebody so that they can develop it in a way that produces a bunch of family housing, including extremely low income family housing, and some nice restaurants, like, you know, fancy French laundry style and El Grienze tacos style. A whole diversity of stuff could be supported there. And then another thing I wanted to talk about is the city parking lots, explore and pursue developing housing there. I feel like that needs a lot of detail and concrete milestones for it to be an effective housing element program. And our affordable housing overlay also needs a lot of concrete detail. It in particular should be explicitly stated that it will be above and beyond. It will offer incentives to development above and beyond the state density bonus, because that's the point. People can always use a state density bonus to develop affordable housing, 100% affordable housing. We want to control the situation. So we want our affordable housing overlay to be more attractive so that developers choose to use it. And we need to say that in our program and outline some specific objectives there. I've already made a lot of comments about the below market rate guidelines, so I'm not going to repeat that tonight. I will say that we could use a stronger program on tenant protections with milestones and objectives. And I will conclude there. Thanks.
Thank you, Karen, for your comment. And one moment. And this will be a final call for item C, general public comment. For anyone who's in attendance, please use the raised hand feature. And not seeing any additional hands raised, I'll return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that public comment. And under regular business, the Housing Commission receives informational presentations in addition to considering policy matters and administrative actions. Are there any clarifying questions from the Housing Commission on item D1, approving minutes from the Housing Commission's regular meeting on May 4th, 2022, before taking public comment on the item? Hearing none, I guess we can proceed to public comment. Mike, do we have any public comment on item G1?
Thank you, Chair Bigelow, and not to be redundant, but for members in the public who wish to provide public comment on item D1, please use the raised hand feature and I will have the ability to open your microphone and you can provide your public comment to the Housing Commission. And this is for item D1, approve minutes for Housing Commission regular meeting on May 4th, 2022. And if you are dialing in, you can press *9 if you'd like to provide a public comment on item D1. Okay, and just giving it another second. Not seeing any hands raised, I will return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And this item is now open for Housing Commission discussion. Does anyone have any burning thoughts about last month's meeting minutes? Hearing none. Do I have a motion and a second for approving the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, commissioners. Mike, can I have you take a roll call vote?
Absolutely. Commissioner Campos. I believe that was an aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Thank you. No problem. Commissioner Leach.
Aye.
Commissioner Merriman.
Yes.
Chair Nguyen is absent. Commissioner Pimentel.
Aye.
Commissioner Walker.
Aye.
Thank you. And Chair Bigelow.
Aye.
Thank you. And the motion passes 601 with Commissioner Nguyen absent.
Great, thank you for that. Acting Principal Planner, Tom Smith. Did I just skip a page? No, I didn't. Will introduce item D2.
Thank you, Chair Bigelow, and thank you, Housing Commissioners. Tarleton Properties is proposing a life sciences research and development building that would be up to 260,400 square feet in size. And it would be located on a vacant northern portion of a lot that's at the intersection of Adams Drive and Adams Court in the Life Sciences zoning district. The Life Sciences zoning district does not permit residential uses, and the uses of the surrounding properties are also designated as life sciences R&D properties. The applicant does not own any sites within Menlo Park that allow residential uses. And so consistent with the BMR ordinance and guidelines, the applicant has proposed to pay a BMR in lieu fee. The current fee estimate is approximately $5.23 million and may increase depending on the final square footage of the building and the timing of the payment, since the fee per square foot is adjusted annually on July 1st. Collection of the in lieu fee for the project would add to the city's BMR fund and could be used to support future affordable housing projects. With the sixth cycle housing element update currently underway and its focus on affordable housing in districts 2 through 5, the fees could potentially be used to support affordable housing opportunities in other areas of the city outside of District 1. And so for those reasons, staff is recommending that the Housing Commission recommend approval of the BMR in lieu fee payment to the Planning Commission, which would be the final decision-making body on the project. And that is the brief overview that I have for you this evening. I'll return it back to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Tom. Are there any clarifying questions from the Housing Commission before we take public comment? Commissioner Leach.
I have some obvious questions to ask. I noticed, I was reading through this, and the development is located in an area that isn't zoned residential, and where residential development isn't permitted. Again, this clarifying question, the BMR in lieu fee and the BMR guidelines apply to non-residential and residential development. So any development in the city of Menlo Park?
This development would apply to this development, I believe, because it's over 10,000 square feet of gross floor area. And so it would need to comply with chapter 16.96 of the city's municipal code, which is the BMR ordinance. Even though it can't support housing uses on the site, it still owes those fees at a minimum.
And just again, clarifying question in general, given the changing nature of some of the zoning we're doing, there will still be zones that are remain strictly non-residential, and the BMR in lieu fee still applies to, and the BMI guidelines still apply to them, even if they're in an area that's non-residential, if it's over a certain square footage. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. So the life sciences zoning district is really geared towards office research and development uses. Some of those uses involve potentially hazardous materials and things that just make it less compatible with a residential use integrated in some cases. And so in particular, we're not looking at a change in zoning of this district that would allow for residential uses in the future, but it would still be required to pay BMR in lieu fees.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Leach, and the explanation, Tom. Are there any more clarifying questions on this item? All right, hearing none, I think we can progress to public comments. Mike, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do, Chair Bigelow, and I'll just make a general announcement for members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment on item D2. Please use the raised hand feature, or if you are dialing in, please push *9. I will then have the ability to open your microphone and you can provide your public comment to the Housing Commission. So it does look like we do have a public comment. One moment, and I'm also going to promote this. I believe Commissioner Nguyen is just logged in under attendees, so give me one moment to promote her to a panelist. Okay, looks like she's in. Okay, and I will share my screen. And our first public commenter will be Karen Grove. Karen, you should be able to unmute and address the Housing Commission now.
Thank you. At the risk of making you all sick of me, I just wanted to point you out to program H4.C in the housing element, which is called Increased Commercial Linkage Fee. It currently has a time frame of being complete within 1 year of the housing element adoption, but I would encourage you all to make it a priority, among other things. But the sooner we right-size that fee, the sooner we can better address the jobs housing imbalance in our community. I believe that other cities have 2x or more higher fees than us. So we could probably be doing more. Of course, it has to be studied and evaluated. Just encourage making that a priority. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. All right, and one last call for public comment on item D2. This is a recommendation of a below market rate housing agreement term sheet with Tarleton Properties for 1350 Adams Court. And final call for public comment. And not seeing any additional hands raised, I will return the meeting to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that public comment and for your assistance, Mike. Now, this item is now open for Housing Commission discussion. Any commissioners have any comment?
I have some comments or questions, really.
Great. Commissioner Merriman.
This is probably something I'm hoping Mike can answer. But when was the last time the city of Menlo Park engaged in the business of refreshing our Nexus study?
So that's a great question. So the last time the Nexus study was looked at was in partnership with 21 Elements and other organizations throughout San Mateo County. I don't have the exact date, but I believe that was around 2018 or so. So it's been a little while, and my understanding is twofold. So 21 Elements in that group is after the housing element update process. It does look like there's going to be a regional analysis that'll take place maybe in the next year or after the next year, I would say. And that'll be on a regional basis. The city of Menlo Park is potentially looking at a quicker turnaround on that analysis, which would really be part of the BMR phase 2, BMR guidelines update phase 2. So staff went to the Housing Commission and City Council in the last few months with phase 1, which looked at some of the programming and some of the, sorry, lack of a better term for the, just blanking on the name for it, but our list of guidelines for folks who are applying to our program. So really just more administrative. But that being said, there is a phase 2 that is planned. I don't have a timeline on that specifically, but there is a potential to release that a little bit sooner than the regional effort.
So is it your understanding that that timeframe, that within 1 year, the nexus study and potentially the fee structure would be reassessed within the year? That, do you think that that's realistic based on
So
the other component pieces?
yeah, it's a good question, and I'll clarify. I think the process would start in a year. I don't know that the study itself would finish, so maybe the study itself would be at least 1.5 to 2 years out. Therefore, that's where the city may look at including this in the phase 2 of the BMR guidelines update, and that would hopefully have a quicker turnaround time. So we've staff internally has been preparing some items for a potential release of an RFP. I don't know exactly on when that will get released, and I don't want to misspeak for what the timeline will be, but I know that that's part of a discussion on releasing that a little bit sooner than that regional effort.
If I could, just for the purposes of making sure that we track this, is it possible to put something in the minutes around the timing of this, or that we want to see something around the schedule of this, just so that it doesn't get lost as it moves forward? Can you help me think through that?
Sure, and and the only reason I'm essentially hesitating on giving you an exact date is with my departure from the city. I don't want to misspeak on what staff bandwidth will be. So ultimately,
I'm hoping we can put something that we craft in our potentially in our resolution around looking at that, just as a way of keeping notes. That's something we would hope to initiate later this year, so that it could wrap up within the next 2 years or so.
Absolutely, and you know, if it's a public comment or communications to staff, we can definitely look at. Happy to work with you, Commissioner Merriman, on what the best avenue on delivering that message to staff is.
Thank
and
you.
I can make a note on my staff notes as well, and you know, leave some internal notes as well with that handoff.
Would appreciate that. Thank you.
As a point of clarification, just making sure that I understand the housing element policy that was called out, H4.C, was they gave a 1-year timeline after the housing element was drafted and approved, I believe. And this is separate from that, the RFP that you're talking about?
So I guess you'd have to look at the overall timeline. So when we would release an RFP, it pretty much matches up with what's being described most likely in the housing element. So if the RFP were to release anytime in the next 6 months prior to the housing element being completed and due to the final copy being sent to HCD, we're probably looking at adoption and whatnot going to City Council sometime in that first year. So
Okay.
I think it's really dependent on when the RFP is released on when that exactly that happens, but working back through the numbers, and I know we're maybe getting a little, I know it's related, but maybe we're a little off topic on the project at hand, but I get it is related.
It is related in that it's material to the fee that will be provided, and it is worth noting that the fee structure that is written about in the staff report at this point is almost a relic. It's a pretty old structure. So depending on when the project moves forward, this might be the fee, or it could be something else. Correct?
The fee is potentially subject to change. I think that they essentially called that out. So I understand your desire to know about things that would impact that. I'm sure our developer friends would love to hear that as well. Commissioner Leach.
I'm following up on what try to follow the discussion and following up on the discussion. The fee would change, and the fee structure would it be structured such that we get more money for the city coffers, or or do we not know? Would the other things be coming in? How would it be? How would it, or is this a conversation for another time?
If I may, through the chair. Commissioner Leach, that's a great question. So the commercial in lieu fee that's being discussed as part of the project this evening. So the funding for this fee specifically goes into the BMR Housing Fund. And those funds are then in turn, the city has 5 years to use those funds once they're accepted and then or deposited or to the city essentially, and are in the fund. We have 5 years essentially, and that's state law to utilize those funds. And then just an example of funding projects that have come through, and that's part of our notice of funding availability and release. So the 6-8 Coleman Avenue, which we partnered with HIP Housing, as well as the home ownership preservation program that should be starting in the near future with Habitat for Humanity. And then there's a pending project with Mid-Penn Housing as well at 335 Pierce. So those were our most recent applications that came through, and the fees, those are just examples. It doesn't mean that the city couldn't also use those fees for other proactive measures that either fund directly the preservation or production of affordable housing. But there are, I believe it's section 14.3 of the BMR guidelines goes into the applicable uses of the fund.
Okay, and that I was just worried about that. If they're going to redo the fee structure, does that affect getting the 5-point-something million dollars in the in lieu fee, or
I think what we're, if I may, I think what we're
like going down a rabbit hole?
well, I think what I'm interpreting is are you asking if it would potentially decrease? And I just
Or stop it anyway?
No, if anything, it would most likely increase the fee collected and therefore the total sum the city receives. And by most accounts, that would most likely be the case.
It would all depend upon what the study said the market would bear, which traditionally in this area has gone up. But who knows what the future holds? None of us are necessarily capable of reading the future too much. If you are, let me know. We'll buy lotto tickets. And so I think that trying to figure out exactly what the fee might be in the future is a tough call. I think tonight we're mostly here just to see if the in lieu fee is in fact what we do recommend. But it was a good question, and thank you for this discussion. I think it is important to keep in mind that these things are subject to change. Do we have any further comments or questions about staff's recommendation, presentation? All right, hearing none. Do I have a motion regarding this item?
I move to adopt the staff recommendation.
Second.
All right, I hear a motion and a second. Thank you for that. Mike, if we could do a roll call vote, please.
Chair Bigelow.
Adriana seconded, by the way.
Okay, I inferred that that's what the thumbs up was for. So I'll just confirming I am putting Commissioner Walker as the second. But thank you for the clarification. So roll call vote, Commissioner Campos.
Aye.
Commissioner Leach.
Aye.
Commissioner Merriman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Nguyen. I'd say that's an aye. I don't-
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Pimentel,
Aye.
Commissioner Walker,
Aye.
thank you, and Chair Bigelow.
Aye.
Thank you. And the motion passes unanimously 7-0. Thank you.
Okay, well, remarkably, that concludes our regular business for the evening. And we can move on to our reports and announcements. Do we have any ad hoc subcommittee reports?
We have an email chain about the potential beginning of our ad hoc subcommittee, and I have every confidence this is going to be the week. About the work plan.
Excellent. And the work plan subcommittee consists of Commissioner Leach, Vice Chair Nguyen, and myself. Okay, are there any other subcommittee updates? Hearing none, I think we can move on to item E2, commissioner updates. Do we have any individual commissioner updates? Hearing none, we can keep on trucking. So we can move on to item E3, recommendation of future agenda items. Do we have any recommendations for future agenda items? Commissioner Merriman, I saw you come on mute.
I think it would just be helpful to know who might be staffing this commission going forward. And then when it's appropriate, I would like to acknowledge the good 4 years that Mike Noche has spent helping us be prepared and informed. And it has been a real pleasure to work with Mike. So I want to say thank you very much for all that you have put into making this commission grow and meet more regularly, and all of the day-to-day work that involves. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Merriman, and everyone. Appreciate that. And I can go ahead and just step in and answer that question if that's okay with the chair.
Please.
Or actually, maybe we should list this under staff updates and announcements. So I will answer that question. I'll just leave it for staff updates.
Much appreciated. All right. Do we have any other recommendations for future agenda items? I heard interest in linkage fees. So we can potentially talk about someone taking that on moving forward. All right, hearing none, I'll move on then to item E4.
Sorry, I was too slow with my raise hand function.
John.
Madam Chairman.
No, please, Commissioner Pimentel, jump in.
I'd like to propose that we do a study session or invite some developers in to present ideas for how we might work with our downtown parking lots issue. There's one way of looking at it that will require a ton of staff time and bog down our now understaffed housing and planning department. There's another way of looking at it where we might just be able to invite developers in to brainstorm with us and say, what would it take to make a parking plus housing plus affordable housing project work on one or more lots? And doesn't mean we have to do anything, doesn't mean that that we would agree to anything, but I'd love to hear what the market might bring to us. And I think we could do that with a very simple, statement of not as detailed as an RFP, but, some outlining ideas of what we might want, and put it out to the usual folks in the marketplace and have a meeting, see what comes back.
Sounds like a great idea, and I'm sure that if we get an email going with some folks, we can probably set something up for the future. Are there any other recommendations for future agenda items?
I'm interested in seeing what staff's ideas about the affordable housing overlay zone and the housing element might be. It too is a little outdated, although it was powerful at the time it was put in place. And I think the specific changes to that ordinance are going to be really important to meet our goals.
What I'm hearing is that you guys are especially hungry to discuss things when we have little on the agenda for the evening. I love it. Okay, so what I'm hearing is a request for information regarding who the upcoming staff person will be, brainstorm with developers regarding parking lots, updating the linkage fees and the affordable housing overlay zone from the housing element. What is going on there, touching on that? I think those are all great future agenda items. So with that, hearing nothing further on this item, I'm going to say that we can move on to agenda item E4, staff updates and announcements. Mike.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And so the plan moving forward, just to answer that question that Commissioner Merriman brought up, and this is just something I wanted to make sure we mentioned in our staff announcements. So in the near term, the next meeting for the Housing Commission sent out an email update earlier today, and we'll be looking for everyone's availability. So right now, and this is just the long way of answering the question on who the staff liaison will be. So our next meeting for the Housing Commission is scheduled for July 6th. And because that meeting is right during the week of 4th of July, that's historically been kind of tough to have a quorum, which we would need at least 4 members of the Housing Commission present. So in the staff email today that went out to the Housing Commission members, we're looking at alternative dates on June 29th or July 13th. As alternative. So that would be if we did not have a meeting on July 6th. And the reason for the alternative dates rather than just canceling is the agenda item for that day is targeted to be the Willow Village BMR proposal. We were originally trying to tee it up for this meeting, which is why we're a bit light this evening on a regular business items. However, staff needed more time to work with the developer to work through the current proposal. So that is targeted to reach the Housing Commission in July. So all that being said, the staff member who's leading that project at the moment is Kyle Parada, who's our acting planning manager. So in the interim or short term, Kyle will be the staff liaison to the Housing Commission. I expect that may change as things get sorted, but in the near term, that will be the liaison for now. And then my expectation is that may change. So that's who will be leading things for now. I don't have a longer term answer at the moment, but I know staff is discussing that transition plan after my departure next week.
Can I quickly just ask for a show of hands who's available on the 29th? So, okay, I've got 4, 5 folks, 6.
June, for clarification, you're talking about June, right?
Yeah, June 29th. And is a show of hands for who's available on July 13th? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it looks like we have a dead heat for either date. Is there a preference for earlier or later from commissioners. This feels easier to do right now rather than an email thread over and over.
I
don't have
vote
a
for
preference.
July 13.
Yeah, might give them more time. to-
Okay.
I second John.
All right, great. Sounds good. Okay, July 13th is what we're going with then, if that is acceptable to staff.
Yeah,
Great.
and I think that's just fine, and we'll work for the if that's what the Housing Commission's preference is, I can make sure that that message gets delivered, and then I'll be sure Kyle follows up with the commission.
Great. Okay. And I think I'm sorry for interrupting you. Please continue. I return it to you.
No worries. Thank you, Chair Bigelow. I just wanted to thank the commission as a whole. Again, it's been a pleasure to work with you all. So that's my last update. I just wanted to thank you all, and hope we continue to stay connected. I'm happy to be a resource moving forward as I continue on my path, and we'll still be working within housing and community development. So appreciate everyone's hard work on the commission. It's been a pleasure working with you all.
The feeling is entirely mutual, Mike, and it has been lovely to watch you grow in this position and to hear about your family's growth as well. Having an office 2 miles from a new baby is pretty irresistible. So
Yes.
even though we know we're a pretty alluring bunch, that's hard to turn down. So thank you for all of your years and all of your guidance. They have been invaluable to us.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Chair Bigelow, and a big thank you to past and current Housing Commission members out there as well. So it's been a pleasure.
Agreed
again.
with that.
Adriana's bot baby's very cute.
I'm no kidding. I love the addition of future commissioners to our crew. Okay, well, with that, we bid a very fond farewell to Acting Housing Manager Mike Noche. And I think that we can adjourn the meeting at 8 p.m. tonight. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.